Hi, friends, it's Salt. If you're new here, this channel is all about salt. Salt is the alchemical element of transformation. Salt cleanses, it heals, and it transmutes energy just like you do. This channel finds the rare archetypes who move through life differently. So if you found this, I'm really honored to have you and really just be one of the few who gets to see and reflect you properly. Today's first message is very specific and it might only make sense to you because as I'm looking at this, I'm having a hard time making sense of it. But what's being presented to me is very much like alchemical, alkaline, and then the relation to sunlight. So bear with me here. It's being presented to me that in the past, you may have felt like the sun, the physical sun, was too harsh on your body, almost like you avoided it in some way. And very recently, you have been, and this could have been over the course of the last couple of years, maybe it was progressive, but you've now been craving that warm feeling. It's not overwhelming, it's not too much. In fact, you want it, you desire it. So this could also be happening in reverse, like maybe in the past you've liked it and now it feels too overwhelming. But I think Spirit's highlighting the contrast here rather than where you are in the timeline. In the past, it seems like you were purging a lot of acidic properties and elements within your physical body. You might have had higher levels of this, not because you were unhealthy or there was anything wrong with you. I think I might get to the reason why you had more acidic properties maybe later in this reading, but it's not clear right now. It's just there is a physical embodiment right now of more alkaline levels of neutrality and balance. And that is how it's being presented as like your ability to bask in the sun is almost showing your progress in that way. The next message here is it kind of feels like a connection to what I just said is it feels like this is a collective who very much is intentional about self-care. And I see a lot of thought going into experimentation with different ways to care for yourself, like trial and error almost. A lot of supplements or just natural remedies and practices seem really prevalent here. That seems very important in your experimentation with your body. But what I also see here is like it's easily deprioritized when things shift. So I'm kind of getting like a person who has maybe a challenge in keeping consistency long term with one experimentation. I do see here the interesting piece is that there is consistency through the persistence of your acknowledgement and your consciousness to work on these things. So it almost balances out because you're so aware that even when your ritual or your practice falls off and you go to the next thing, the consistency here, it lives in the consistent experimentation. So the fact that you keep trying, you go to another thing is where oddly enough, your consistency lives, but it can become discouraging over time because you're kind of giving up one thing and you're moving on to the next thing. And that goes on for a while. So I think it's interesting. It's fascinating that it's living through the experimentation as the consistency part of this. And we might revisit that as we continue. But the cards here that I've pulled are a major arcana. I got the hangman. And then at the bottom of the deck here, there is temperance. So I'm getting like a pause, a sacred stillness. We've talked about this in a lot of messages, but this one feels very specific. It feels very specific to the body and alkaline levels. It feels also there's an odd specific message that came up too. Sorry. If you're experiencing like skin or back pain, this could be a very indirect way that acidic properties are being built in the body and showing you something. Oddly enough, the advice here is to release that through more movement. And it's not saying to vigorously exercise or to, go join a run club or anything crazy like that. But it's almost like you need to shake it loose because it might be stuck in some way. Super specific, and that will only apply to a very small amount of people, but that message popped up and I don't want to forget it as I continue. So the message here seems to be about a past life connection, and being drawn to a slower way of living right now. There is like a very distinct pivot that is happening now or going to happen, but there's this desire to drop all complexities and move towards simplicity. On a very human level, what I think might be happening here is like it is natural to experience burnout and then want simpler things after that. I think that's like the natural progression of like overextending and then needing some sort of rest. But this feels different. This feels like it might not even be a direct result of the stress you've recently undergone. What I'm being shown here is there's like past life connection here. So even if you weren't involved in high stress, that desire to simply live was always there. And all it did is if you were in these high stress environments is push down these desires deeper and deeper. So now if you're outside of that high stress environment, you might be accessing it more easily, but it's not a result. It's not like a direct causation from whatever burnt you out or whatever complexities you faced. I think that this desire just lived in you. It's a part of you. It's a part of your consciousness, part of your soul. So it feels important to say that, because some here might feel that this is just a reactionary want, like a result of trauma or a stressful situation. And so they're kind of bypassing it. And so I'm being called to explain to you, it's really not that. That was just the result of it being pushed down for a little bit as you navigated those chaotic situations. There is a really strong message here about past lives that I'm going to dive into. It's very specific and it might not resonate with everybody, but whoever it does resonate for, it's very much why you're being guided to slower living right now. In the past, in many lives, you were a healer and a mentor. So you took on what feels like a lot of pain and complexity from others. This was a regular cycle that kept you stuck for many lifetimes. Basically, you were the strong sounding board. And this created an inability to explore and pursue your own desires and your own needs. So each lifetime, you've repeated this karma, ignoring, your needs and wants, which would have brought you back to this slower, less complicated life. So there's also a message here where in order to hold that space for others, you almost had to bypass any vulnerability you had. So like if you were tired or if you just like were experiencing problems yourself, you kept persisting just to stay strong for others. And that's very important here. So this message it has a lot of different layers, but this message has a lot of complicated layers, which is like funny in itself. But what it's pointing to is that hardship that you experienced in other lives, the complexity that you held for others, actually held less friction than this lifetime. This lifetime of dropping all of that, although you're holding that complexity for others, you're now entering a space that your soul doesn't recognize. So it's going to be more difficult and more challenging, which it doesn't seem at a conscious level that even makes sense, but it very much does. So here in this life, as you're breaking this, you are going to be given these much simpler and beautiful opportunities that like help you live in alternative ways that don't require you to stay strong all the time. It feels like you're going to struggle with acceptance of these gifts as they continue to come. They might not have come yet. They're going to be very progressive. The more you hold more space for yourself and less for others, you're going to start receiving them in layers. But it's going to feel like you can't sit down and accept them. And you're going to feel odd. Like it should be difficult. It should be complicated. You should be holding all this stuff for others. So the biggest lesson here, I think, in this lifetime and with you currently is that you're going to learn, how do I accept that I just get to live simply and slowly and I don't have to work really hard for it? A way to think about this, like an example that just came up in my mind, is this energy really feels like you inherit a house, like a huge house, and then you live without any bills and you just exist in that. and you're creating and you're like taking care of your body and you're doing very simple things, but you'll feel really wrong doing this. Like someone's watching, someone's judging, you're judging yourself, you feel lazy, etc. And the message here is really, really strong. It's saying you deserve a lifetime to accept leisure in a way without shame or guilt. And it is your inherent right, especially with all the lifetimes you've lived holding all of this complexity and pain for others. You now get to live lifetimes, this lifetime and others moving forward, where the real gift is rest and leisure and peace and slowness and stillness. And even if it's hard to do that, that's where your real creation moves forward. That's where you start living in this creation space. And it's very important that you do that. So, yeah, beautiful message today. And also, there is a lot here about the physical body. So, be paying attention to small aches and pains and things like that, and continue to do natural healing processes as you are. Continue that experimentation. This last part is, I think some of you already intuitively know to do this, but keep leaving comments. The comments themselves do not have to be anything specific or personal to you. Think of these as energetic nudges for me to align with your energy. It helps me channel for you more efficiently, and I want to be able to do that. I read each and every one always, and I am so thankful for all of you. So, cheers, friends.